I want to welcome everybody to the Arts Council's Cultural Development Grant Workshop today. Here with me today is other members of our staff, our new Executive Director, Martine Meredith Collier, and Eric Comas, our Director of Operations. Okay, little housekeeping first. If you haven't already done so, the Arts Council has a community survey that we are doing. Many of you have gotten emails separately about that. I would ask you to please go to tampaarts.org, click on the banner that says survey, and help us by taking that and also by forwarding that link on to any of the people who are in your circle or on your mailing lists. This survey is a community survey which is for everyone, whether you're in the arts or you're not in the arts. It has some general questions and then has a way to branch off based on whether you answer you're an artist or a cultural worker or a teacher, etc. And there'll be a few more questions. It's not really very long, so if you would take that, it would help us because we're using that information to help us in our strategic planning. The Arts Council is doing a strategic plan right now that will help guide us going forward in the things that we should and should not be doing to help our community and to serve our community. So, very important, tampaarts.org. If you go there, click on the survey banner, and if you would send that link on to others, we appreciate it. We'll get right to it. A little bit of history. The Arts Council's Cultural Development Grant Program is funded by the county commissioners, the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners. So far, we have given $11.5 million to local nonprofits in the arts, and that's been since 1991. This is a competitive grant, so you are judged by a panel of experts. That panel will happen early, for those of you who have a grant. That panel will happen earlier this year, so pay attention to your dates. It's based on 3 areas: cultural merit, community outreach, and the financial administrative management. And this is a general program support grant. So, what's new? Well, first, no more paper copies. This will be very interesting. We're gonna see which gets the most applause, and then we'll really know. So no more paper copies. You're going to upload online. With that comes a caveat. Please be patient. This is the first time we're doing this, especially with such a large group. Because of the online document upload, you're going to have more documents, but it is actually less information that you're having to give to us. Please do not wait till the last minute when all of you are trying to upload at the same time. Also new this year, this is general program support. You are not applying for a special project. We have eliminated one of the funding levels, so there are only 4 funding levels. Everybody is on an even keel. For those of you in the past who were forced to apply for a specific project, you don't have to do that. You're doing general program support. You might end up using the money for a special project, but that's up to you. The category is all the same for everyone. Questions are all geared to general program support. Also new this year, funding level that you qualify is based on your revenue, your prior year revenue. In the past, it's been expenditures. That's not it. So you're going to look at what your prior year revenue is and then look at the funding level that you fall into to determine what you qualify for. Special events, those of you who were in that category in the past, you are applying under your funding level for your corresponding level of revenue. I guess it's the online part that, that got the most. We'll see. Also new this year, we have reduced the narrative section of the application from 19 questions to 10. Also new, instead of 4 budget tables, you're going to do 1 budget table. Probably the biggest one here is that we are no longer requiring audits, financial compilations, or financial reviews from you. That's an expense that you do not have to incur. We will, however, be asking you for a copy of your most recent 990 or 990 EZ, which everybody should be filing anyway. We are going back this year to our former scoring scale, which is 100 points instead of 200. So that's not a huge deal. You'll look on the scoring rubric, see what the points break down to. Keep that in mind when you're writing your grant. One thing that's not on here is we are not asking for a copy of your IRS letter of determination or a copy of your state filing. You do not have to give that to us anymore. Just because you're not giving it to us, though, does not mean that we aren't checking, because we are checking, but you're just not asking you to go to that trouble. As I mentioned, the deadlines are a little bit earlier this year. We still do courtesy reviews. However, we're only doing those for new applicants. If you've applied in the past, we'll answer your questions, of course, but we're just not going to do a formal courtesy review. So please feel free to call us, email us if you have questions. The application, or those courtesy reviews, by the way, are available through Friday, June 23rd. Application deadline. This is when you must have all of your documents, the support materials, everything uploaded. That's July 7th by 5 p.m. That's everything. Once you upload everything, you're going to have a confirmation. So you'll be able to tell, start early, please. As I mentioned earlier, this is the first time we're doing this. Technical glitches occur on your end, our end, Dropbox's end. Don't take a chance. Set the deadline earlier in your mind on your calendar and try to get it uploaded earlier than the July 7th deadline. Panel review meeting. That will take place on August 15th, 9:30 a.m. back here at the Children's Board. Funding levels, as I mentioned, there are 4. The breakdown between the levels is the same, but just remember that this is this is revenue, not expenditures. The amount that you can ask for, level 1 can up to $50,000, level 2 up to $30,000, level 3 up to $20,000, level 4 up to $15,000. Check your last year's revenue, look on your 990, it should be there, and then go to the guidelines to see any of the requirements that you have for that particular level. Now, when we're looking at your eligibility status, you need to be a 501c3 and you need to be incorporated in the state of Florida. We'll be able to check all of that online. But depending on your funding level, you will have a different history requirement. If you have less than $100,000 in revenue for the prior year, you must have your nonprofit status and your incorporation in the state of Florida for at least 1 year at the time of application. So that's going to be on July 7th. If you have more than that, you're going to be required to have 2 years, and that's at the time of application. scoring, as I mentioned, we have reverted back to the 100-point scale rather than the 200. It's based on cultural merit, community outreach, and financial administrative management. In order to be eligible for funding, you have to score an 85 or higher. So every point will count. The score that you have determines the amount of dollars. So if you barely make it at an 85, you're not going to be getting as much money as the person in your, or the organization in your same category that scores a 98. So everybody understand? Got lots of nodding heads. Great. Eligibility worksheet. So if you have downloaded and looked at that, there's a series of questions that are yes, no. The intent here is that this is a general guide for you. If you can answer yes to every single one of these, then you are in all likelihood eligible, 99.9%. This is a document that you will have to complete and upload. Everything that you need to know in order to answer those questions can be found in the program guidelines. If for some reason you still can't find it, feel free to call the Arts Council. Okay, the application document. The application document is broken up into some sections. One is the organization information, which is that cover sheet, just gives you basic information. The organization profile, which is primarily demographics, statistics, a little bit of history, your mission, that kind of thing. All very easy to do. This is a document, this is a Word document. When you go into it, you're going to see that our questions, our part of it is kind of a blue color. So when you put your answers in, they should be black. That's intentional to help our panelists to be able to read a little bit easier. So don't turn your answers blue. The Word document has a little start your narrative here, or start your answer here. Just click on that little box. The gray box will go away and start answering. You can do formatting in there. You can paste from another document, which is typically what most people do, I think. So pasting in your answers. There is a word suggestion and character suggestion there. Please try to stay within that character or word limit. It is very important to us that we don't get a lot of unnecessary information. Please answer the questions and move on from there. The narrative section, which has been reduced. If you've taken a look at that, it's very, very quickly. The questions concern your activities, past and present, artistic and cultural vibrancy, public benefit, organization capacity, goals and objectives, key administrative and creative personnel, diversity, accessibility, and advocacy.
I want you to talk into the mic.
Has everyone been able to hear me so far? I don't want to start over. I've got nods from the back. Okay. Sorry about that. Those questions in the narrative, please, when you look at them, read the question, answer the question fully, and answer that question and not another question that you have in your head. If you're not sure about the question, then the answer is to please call us and we'll help you. For those of you who have done the application in the past, we've had sections on administrative personnel and creative personnel, and sometimes those are the same personnel. That's all been combined into one. Now, financial. Oh, but one thing. that I did not mention, there is a spreadsheet for organization programming. Please fill that out because you are going to need to upload that document as well. Now we're on to Eric.
Fun part. Okay, did everybody download it and have a copy of this budget? If you don't, we have extras here if you need one. He needs one. Like it was mentioned earlier, we have eliminated a lot of the paperwork and duplication of financials that we had in the past. What you're going to see here now is going to be the budget, the total operating budget, your revenues and expenditures, and it's going to have it where you can go ahead and put straight into this budget. You can put the details. Before we had a summary, then a detail, and then a proposal. We're not going to do that anymore. You're going to tell us on this one sheet what you're going to do. You're going to see 3 columns. You got your most current fiscal year. You're going to have your budget year and the next proposed year. In this financial statements here, you're going to see a new column that's been added. It's called the HCHC grant request. That's where you're going to tell us where you're going to spend the money that you're asking for. So if you're going to put it under administrative personnel, that's what you're going to put $1,000, $2,000, whatever that amount is, according to your funding level. And the spreadsheet will also automatically calculate the percentage of money that you're asking from us compared to your budget. Okay, so that's really that's simple. The revenue section is the same. It's going to be the same way. It doesn't have the grant request because you're not asking us. You're telling us where you're spending that money, not how you're receiving it. But you also fill in the information there. And on the last page, there's a section where you have your fund balances. All these numbers, as soon as you plug them into the spreadsheet itself, it'll all calculate for you. So in the first column, under operating fund balance beginning, that's the only number that you're going to plug in. Once you plug that number in, the rest of the math will fill in the rest of the columns. Because before, that used to be a big problem with having, defining what a fund balance is and all that. It'll just do it for you. Just make sure that's accurate and make sure that it matches your 990. Okay, we don't want to see revenues on your 990 of 100,000 and on the sheet you have 200,000. That's not going to make any sense because we're going to have to reduce it. So, does anybody have any questions about this? We'll try to simplify it a whole lot. The only other document that you'll need is to go ahead and upload your balance sheet. And if you can do that as a separate document from this, you're not going to insert it in this spreadsheet. You'll see a tab there, but I think we deleted that tab, right? Anyway.
There is a tab,
yeah, it just reminds you to go ahead and upload your balance sheet. And that's it. That's pretty much it for the financials. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question, Eric, on the budget for 15, 16, 17, 18, whatever, under personal administrative, do we, we usually put who we spend it to. Is it just one amount? Or do we add in?
You can add rows to this spreadsheet, okay. So it'll give us the detail. But you don't have to give us everybody, all the detail. You want to say, you don't even have to mention by name. You can say the executive director, assistant, administration, and like that. So yes, please give us some detail. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Just the spreadsheet with the numbers. The numbers should be self-explanatory. They'll tell us a story, particularly when you add the balance sheet to it. Now, if there's something very, very unusual, like if there's a fluctuation in your budget from one year from 100,000 to 200,000 or the other way around, maybe you want to explain that, because it could be maybe a one-time gift that you've gotten and you're not going to get it again the next year. So those kind of variances do explain. Yes?
And this is our fiscal year, not your fiscal year, right?
Yes, your fiscal year. Yeah, that would take too many adjustments to try to reconcile it to ours. And again, it should match your 990. Yes, ma'am. You got a question?
Okay, so so next year's budget, and let's just say for we're requesting money, and we're gonna put the money from you towards artistic personnel.
Okay.
So for our budget, do we put, say, $5,000 in artistic personnel, and then next to it also put the 5,000 grant request? Does that make sense?
If they happen to be the same amount, but you may have more than $5,000 in artistic personnel. Let's say your staff is 30,000. You're asking us for 5. That's where you put that's where you put what you're asking us for.
So if our total, say, artistic personnel is 35,000, would we put 35,000 in the budget and then 5,000 for the grant request?
Yes.
Okay, and then the percentage next.
It'll calculate itself out.
It'll do it.
Yes, it'll do the percentage.
Okay, sorry.
Right. You're just showing us out of that 35, we're paying for 5 of it.
Jody.
Hey, Jody.
Our, the balance sheet and some of those papers that we use come from the Friends of the Library. We're under their umbrella or whatever you want to call it, because we are the Friends of Storytelling. We're Friends group. Our budget is kind of separate from their stuff. So I've been turning in their balance sheet.
Yes,
for all
you
these years.
continue to
And
do
that's
that, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, we understand that.
You're going to use them, but do that consistently.
Right.
Right.
So don't go between just the Friends of Story.
Our budget is separate from their.
Yes, that's what you want to show us in the grant application and what we're going to be paying for.
Right.
And then the other documentation is just informational that,
From them.
we understand that, yes. Anybody else going once? All right. Thank you.
Just a reminder for people who have not applied before, this is a dollar-for-dollar match grant, and you cannot include in-kind contributions as part of your match. Okay. As I said, we're really asking you for not new information, but we've reorganized it. So the documents that you are required to upload, that eligibility worksheet that we talked about a minute ago, the application document, which is the multi-page document that includes the narrative questions, the organization programming spreadsheet, which is a 3-year list of your events, your ticket prices. This is not how much you got paid. It's the ticket prices, and the location and date. This is going to be for 3 seasons, and they are your seasons. I think many of you go by the September, October start of a season. But it's going to be whatever your season is for the next one, which will be the year that we are giving you the grant for, the one that you are either in or just finished, and the one before that. You need to fill that out and upload it as a required document. The application budget, which Eric was just going over, that's another one. You finish that, it's going to be uploaded. Your balance statement, the 990 or 990 EZ, your board of directors list, which in the guidelines explains to you what needs to show up on that board of directors list, your organization chart, and finally a single page document that is your certification and compliance. That was a part that was on your previous, the bottom of your previous applications. No different. You'll just have your 3 signatures on it, scan that, and upload it to the Dropbox. Support materials. Support materials are optional but recommended. There are very specific file formats which are listed in the guidelines and in the application document. When you, in the end of the application document, the very last question or It's number 10, I believe. And that's a space for you to put a list of the file names of what you're uploading. So if you are uploading letters of support, my suggestion is if you have letters of support, multiple ones, combine those into one file. Do not mix that file with letters of support and newspaper reviews. Just keep the same type of document in there. So maybe the file name is Letters of Support 2017. So you're going to put in the list exactly that, Letters of Support 2017.pdf. You can put next to that as a little descriptive phrase, Letters of Support, drop down, give another, whatever your next upload is. 5 is the limit. If you have audio or video files that are large, we want you to link to those. Make sure that that is a clickable link. Make sure it's hot. In other words, when the panelist is looking at your application, they're going to click on that and go to YouTube or Vimeo or your website, wherever it is that you have the audio or video file. Please make sure that's clickable. The panelists will have a lot of grants to go through. If it's going to be a lot of work for them to follow to see where your particular video is, you're starting to run the risk that they won't go there. So make it easy. Make it the URL clickable. If you use URLs in other parts of your narrative, please make sure those are clickable as well. If you don't know how to make it clickable, this is a Word document, give us a call and we'll explain that. As I said, there's up to 5, no more than 5, and it can be a combination of URLs or it can be URLs and files, all files. It's up to you. Yes?
Well, when I read this, I thought that it said you could have 5 letters. So I just want to clarify. You can have a file with more than 5 letters of support plus 4 other items. Or can you only have... So you can have multiple letters of support and also supporting documentation, like URLs.
Yes, that's correct. She's asking if you can have more than one letter in a letter of support document. Yes, you can. You can have as many as you would like. I would suggest you keep in mind the panelists are going to be reading. Will they read 20 letters of support? I don't know. But you're going to have one letter of support document in that case with however many letters, and then you're going to have 4 other either files or URLs. Okay, uploading documents. I just discovered this morning that if you downloaded the application document and your URL for the upload Dropbox is in all caps, that's not going to work. Dropbox needs to have, it's case sensitive. So I've gone back on the website, uploaded a new application. The only difference there is the URL. It's in caps and lowercase now. Then I also put on that web page the URL in caps and lowercase so that you can go to it. It appears like this. You do not need a Dropbox account to do this. They may be asking for you to, if you want a Dropbox account, but you don't need one to do this. When you upload your documents, you can upload them all at one time, which is what I suggest. Or you can upload some and then come back again. It's easier on us if you just do it all at once. It's probably going to be easier on you because when you upload, you're going to get a screen that says, congratulations, you have uploaded, and then a list of the files. Pay attention to that. Make sure that all the files you intended to upload are there. You're also going to get an email from Dropbox that tells you everything that you uploaded. Check that. Make sure everything is there. Another reason not to wait till last minute. If you find that for some reason one of your files did not upload, and maybe it's your application, you don't want to be sitting there at 5 o'clock on Friday, July 7th, and trying to upload the application again because the Dropbox will close. So try to do this early as you can. Check those lists when they come back to you. Make sure it's all on the list. Also, when you sign into, or when you go to the Dropbox link and you upload your files, it's going to ask you, I can't do anything about this, it's going to ask you for first name, last name, and an email address. Make sure that email address is one where you can be reached, not one that's a general mailbox. Make sure that it's correct, what you've put in, because that's where you're going to get your proof of upload. It's also where we're going to be emailing you to ask you any questions we need to ask. First name, last name. Please only use your first name field and put your organization's name. It's okay if you want to split if you have a long organization name, you can put it over the two fields. Leave one of them blank. It's important because when you upload your document, Dropbox is going to prepend the name of your file with whatever you have put in that field. So if you put your own name, we don't know who that's going to belong to. So it needs to be your organization name, or you run the risk of not having all of the documents together for the panelists to see. Is that pretty clear? Also online, I have made a document with screenshots so you can see what you should see when you go there. So if you have any questions, when you go to Dropbox, download this, take a look at it. When you go there, it should look like this screenshot. When you put in your files and your name and you upload, it should look like that one. And then when you're done, it should look like this. So that's on the same tampaarts.org site grants page that you've been downloading everything else from. Yes?
Is that a 0 or a O in the link?
That's a 0. As I mentioned earlier, if you have very large files like video or audio, for perhaps it's your work samples, please put that file online. Do not try to upload it to the Dropbox if it's very large. You could experience problems. We don't want that, so just link to it. Final suggestions. Start early. Test print your document. Make sure that you can see everything on there that's supposed to be there. Give the document to someone else to let them look at it. Make sure they can see everything, because the panelists are all going to be accessing these online. They are going to see whatever you have put in there. If for some reason you have not filled out an area, they're going to see that. Your points will probably suffer if that's the case. Courtesy reviews for new applicants are until June 23rd. Please make an appointment, and please make sure that you have completed your draft, first draft at least, of your application and your budget, and then give us a call for an appointment. Phone number is 813-276-8250. Call us. You can ask us questions. We're happy to answer those. Any question? Or Martine, would you like to say anything? You've been so quiet.
Can I just add something real quick?
Sure.
Back to the 990s. There is an option for 501c3s to file a postcard instead of a 990. Don't do that. File the 990 easy, because the postcard does not give us any information but your name and address and your ID number. So please, because your level it's going to be determined by the revenue line in that 990 or 990 EZ. So if you have a postcard, redo it as a 990EZ so we can see it. Otherwise, it won't be accepted.
I just wanted, this was a lot of staff time we put in looking at the grant application and eligibility this year. But we do want to get feedback after the process, so we will continue to look at ways that maybe we can make this better for the panelists, for the applicants. So we do want your feedback on what happens this year. We know that there'll be a little bit of a learning curve putting it online, but we thought it was worth doing. And we did do this with the individual artist grants earlier this year, and it worked very well. But again, I will reemphasize what Terry said, that staff will help you, but the earlier you get it done, the more time we have if there are some bumps along the road. So, but we will be, when this is over, we want to find out how you felt about it this year, and we will continue to look at making improvements as we move forward.
Does anybody have any questions? I know that everybody had the documents early enough, I hope, to be able to at least read it once. Yes?
This year, does an applicant have to be a cultural arts organization, or can they have cultural arts programming, but under a larger organization?
The primary mission is in the guidelines. The primary mission of the organization needs to be cultural arts, or cultural arts, I believe is the way we put it. But yes. So, yeah, 501c3 with a primary mission of the arts, then also that you are based in Hillsborough County. There are quite a few things, and as I said, refer to the eligibility worksheet. Work your way through that. If you have any doubts, if you're not sure about one of those points, give us a call. Nora?
Is there definitions for creatives here? Is there a definition that we're looking for?
The creatives would be your creative staff. It might be
But they can be
artistic
volunteer
director.
also.
Yes, yes.
Okay, good.
Many organizations are staffed by volunteers, so paid staff will be, she's talking about the organization profile of the application. And so that column is your board, of course, your staff, which is those are paid and unpaid staff that run the place. I'm sorry, paid staff. Volunteers, the number of volunteers that you have. Then the creatives would be maybe composers that you bring in, actors, people that you are using throughout the year. They may not be there all the time. They may be part-time. They may be only supplemental. Any other questions? Yes?
In the narrative, question one asking about activities past and present, and then with the spreadsheet. How are these different? Is this sort of a list of all programming and activities? Is picking and choosing a organization?
I believe it's asked you for one. Doesn't it say one?
I guess an example. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
So in the narrative where one of the questions is headed activities past and present, you should see the question being to talk about one or to choose one. This is very different from that spreadsheet that's your organization programming. Organization programming is a list. That's all it is a list. So your narrative, the things where you talk about your passion for your organization, etc., that's in the narrative. Any other questions? Yes, Joellen.
Sorry to be so focused on us, but an example of that, we have a lot of events in the community, but also our on-air is 24/7 with 4 channels. So is that something that I would put under the organizational programming also just as a thing, or separate as an event?
Yeah, you're in a unique situation there. If you put your, I know, put your community events, and since you're a media organization, it'll be clear that that's what you are from the rest of it. If I have any other thoughts about that, I'll let you know. But yeah, for now, we're talking about events that happen in the community.
there a page limit on these, on the programs? Is there a page limit or word limit?
Is there a page limit on the organization programming? No, there is not. You can add rows in there. It's an Excel spreadsheet, so you'll be able to just insert rows. Keep doing that. I know you guys have a long list of classes.
Yeah.
If you have something that is a multiple instance of something, let's say it's a play that's performed 10 times, you just list the play once. You don't have to list it all 10 times.
For when our fiscal year differs from the grant cycle's fiscal year. So, for example, like for the grant last year, we won't be completely finished with that grant cycle when we apply. How do we make it? Our fiscal year ends in May. So we will have a period of about, from May to October, that won't be covered on any of the spreadsheets. So what do I do with the show that happens in July, as far as budgets and that type of stuff?
Well, you're going to have your financials according to your fiscal year.
Okay, so it will,
Now, just keep in mind that the grant, the most important part that you have to abide by of our fiscal year is October 1 through September 30th. You have to expend the funds in that time frame. That's going to be what you have to look out for. The financials, you just go ahead and list them the way your fiscal year is.
okay. And then for grant requests, we have to only request things that happen between October 1st and September 30th.
Correct. Yes,
Okay.
that's correct. Otherwise, you won't. Don't spend any money before or after the grant because you won't get reimbursed. Well, when you get a grant, we'll talk more about those details when you actually get awarded a grant. So, any other questions?
Before we leave the budget, I don't know if you're asking about the budget or not. I just realized we may have left off one item of information that we asked for. I'm going to make sure we correct that and upload a new budget sheet today. Or if you don't want to go get it again, up above the table, after the instructions, if you could let us know what your fiscal year is, just for instances like that. So if it's January 1 through December 31st, we used to have a line in there, but when we greatly simplified everything, we seem to have simplified that right out. So we'll make sure that a new document gets online. Nancy.
It goes to the fiscal year and it being different. If our 990, so our fiscal year ends May 31st too, and the new one starts June 1st. So that's kind of tight for this year to get it in, to get everything in for like a 990. Can we go with last year's 990?
It needs to be dated within the last 18 months.
18 months, yeah.
I don't know if you had anything to add.
No, that's it. That's what it is.
Any other questions? Yes. Heather.
And similar question with the balance sheet, because our fiscal year goes to May 30th, and so I'm not sure if the university is able to produce a balance sheet that quickly. Is that something that it has to be a May 30th balance sheet, or could it be an April 2017 balance sheet if they aren't able to get it in front of the
I think the April one would be acceptable.
I'll check.
Yes.
But I don't know yet. I haven't asked.
Okay.
I saw another hand. Is there?
Our fiscal year, as you know, changed. We had the same problem last year. So we have a 3-month fiscal year, short year, to make the transition. Should we give you an extra fiscal year, or what should we do?
I think if you can project it out, or like we were saying earlier, having some kind of explanation of that situation. Explain it so they can understand what they're looking at and not compare 9 months to 12.
Yes.
Rowdy crowd.
I know.
to bring out new images, and I forget which one it was, but can you explain that? Is that and
That's in the application.
Is that new photographs within the body of the text?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
In the past, there have been instances where people put photographs within their document, as far as like maybe the narrative questions. Don't do that. That's going to take up a lot of space. You run the risk of it being deleted. Anything that you want to put in image like that becomes a support document. Now you can, I wouldn't make them tiny, but if you have a lot of photographs that you want to show the panelists, again, it's the same as with the letters of support. You can paste those into one document and upload that. I will say that the experience with the individual artist grants, some of them took advantage of being able to do that, but they made their pictures about this big. So it was like thumbnail size, was not a good idea. So make sure that you give a good size. You can put multiples within one document and upload that. Any other questions? Yes, Carolyn.
Would you suggest that we upload everything at once?
Well,
We upload, still work on the application, but upload some of the other pieces?
you can. It's up to you. Personally, I would do it all at once just because then I have one email from Dropbox. I have one thing to look at rather than maybe getting 9 emails back from Dropbox and then trying to find the one document that maybe didn't get uploaded. But it is up to you how you want to do that. I will tell you that you cannot, once you upload your documents, you cannot get back there to retrieve the document and make changes. So make sure, what you upload is what you are filing as your application. So don't start on the application and start uploading it and keep trying to make changes, because it doesn't work that way. Whatever your team is that you're working with, or you're going to work for several weeks on this, go ahead and then get to the point where it's final and upload that. Yes, Heather?
For the contact email, does that only take one email address, or can it be 2 emails?
One email. Yeah, not multiple people within your organization, just one contact point. It's just like the grant contact person is usually what people put in, just one email. Any other questions? Yes.
I just want to make sure I understand what we're applying, the amount we're applying for. If in this first year that we have been a 501c3, if we have not brought in $15,000, we have to apply for whatever we have brought in, the amount that we have actually earned this year. Is that
Your funding level is level 4, let's say. So you have passed your revenue that puts you into that category. And so you're going to apply. If what you're saying, you don't anticipate being able to match the 15,000, which is...
we may be able to in this next year, but is it based on what we have already brought in?
No. It is what you project.
Yeah.
It's like any different than that?
Yeah.
It's always been the way it is. So, it's what you project for your match. So we'll be able to look and see if we have any questions. If you see that, you think the panelists might go, hey, wait a minute, they had a very low year, they'll never be able to match this, put an explanation.
And also with the match, if you have $15,000 and you're eligible to apply for, what was it, 15?
Mm-hmm.
You don't necessarily have to apply for 15. Especially if you think you're not going to be able to match it. So don't do that. Ask for 7. So you don't have to ask for all of it, if you cannot match it. Or I'm coming after you.
That brings to mind one point that I want to make, and that's We want you to apply for as much money as you need to carry out your programs. If you know ahead of time that you're not going to be able to spend all of your money, or that whatever it is that you are going to be using the grant for does not take the entire amount on your category, be realistic with what you're asking for. Yes, we want you to get as much as you can. Be optimistic about that. But if you really know that you can't, try to be realistic and maybe a little bit more. Because the money is awarded until we run out. We ratchet down the amounts. And so if everybody's asking for way more than what they'll ever use, it does make a difference in the end. Any other questions? Yes?
How will the awarding work? Because last year, the person that scored the most got full funding, and then everybody else got like 60-some%. Is that what we're looking? Is it that type of model, or what will it be?
No, the top scorer will not receive full funding.
Yeah,
So that's
We've reformulated that, so that's not going to happen this year. So, but in this year, every point's going to count. So that's what I want to strongly make it, that you try to get as many points as you can, because it will make a difference.
We have made a change to that end of it for those of you who have applied in the past and perhaps received a grant. We contracted with a mathematician to go through the formula that was being used. The formula has always been tied to your score. And it has also been a product of how much money we have that we are awarded from the county. And then we ratchet down until everybody who is eligible is funded something. Okay, you may have noticed in the past that the organization that maybe just squeaked into the eligible for funding category got not that much less than an organization who scored near the top. The mathematician was able to go through that and kind of rectify it so that there is a more definite delineation among the scores that are in each category, which is going to be very fair. We've run, Eric ran various scenarios based on past years. And I will tell you that for people who score high, they ended up with more money under the new formula. People who scored low ended up with less under the new formula. So it is more equitable and fair in the end with the scoring. But there is a new formula. The top scoring in each category will not receive full funding. But there is great incentive to get every point that you can.
Thank you. That answers what I was thinking.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
By the way, the mathematician that we contracted with to do this has done this kind of funding formula for grants all over the country, state organizations, local organizations. I have worked with her before, and she's brilliant, and so she's done a good job. And this is a formula. We just plug in your score, the amount of money available, and boom, the number will pop up at us. So it's way above what any of us could do, but it's perfect. It's very nicely done, and it does seem more equitable. And she has quite a bit of experience with this.
And we've run it every which way to Sunday. Yes, Art.
We know what happened with the legislature this session, and the county administrator has frozen hiring within the county, which is not going well for anyone who gets county money. I know this is.
I'm going to let you speak into the mic. I think I'm not going to be able to repeat all of what you're...
Is there a scribe?
No, but I've heard you talk before.
What I said was, we know what happened in the legislature this session and the effect it has on counties throughout the state. We know the county administrator is frozen hiring. is there anything we can do to ensure or help ensure that the Arts Council does not lose money in the coming year?
I think we face this every year, those of you who have been with us. It is something that we have to remain hopeful about. We'll know more as the time goes on. I published a blog post over the weekend about the funding from the state, and I think the advice there is good for everybody, whether you're on the local level or the state level or even the national level, which at every level the arts are, as far as funding goes, are having a very difficult time. And that's two things. You can make sure your legislators or your elected officials are aware of how important the arts are to your in Florida lifestyle, the Florida life that they talk about being so good to live here in the Sunshine State and how good it is to live here in Hillsborough County. The arts are a big part of that, of a quality of life. Make sure that they know. Don't just make sure that they know at the time an action alert goes out. When everyone's panicking and everyone's raising their voices, make sure that, like a little drop of water, you're letting them know all through the year how great it is to be a part of the arts and to have the kind of arts that we do. That goes a long way with keeping us in mind with elected officials. I mean, speaking of the us in the arts, that needs to happen on the national level, the state level, and the local level. And then for each of you, I hope everyone will continue to buy tickets, donate, and support the arts on our local level so that you are able to benefit not only from things like grants, but also from audience development and enhanced and enlarged audiences. So it's all very important. But yes, keep an eye on everything. Let your local elected officials know what you're doing in the arts and how important the arts are. Is there anything?
That's fine.
Eric?
Sounds good.
Any more questions? Yes, Joellen.
I haven't done this grant before, so if this is not the right venue to ask this question, that's fine. But you emphasized that you need 85 points or more. Are there common pitfalls or things that you want to make sure everybody knows what to do to make sure that they are doing it right for the points? Like, what are the, okay, because I read through this and I want to make sure that I get as many points as I can.
There's a lot of things, but make sure your grants are error-free, spelling, grammar, all counts. Panelists like to see a nice, clean document that makes sense. They're not a big fan of using emojis. They're usually not a big fan of spelling Y-O-U-R as you are, or any of the other things that are so pervasive in the text society. Try to use complete sentences and be as direct as possible in answering the questions that are asked. As I said before, do not answer questions that have not been asked. So make sure you're giving them those answers. These questions have been designed with the scoring rubric in mind. Keep that scoring rubric with you when you're writing so you can see where the points break down and you can see what might make a difference for that particular question. Trying to think if there's anything off the top of my head. That's probably the biggest things.
The best tip that I could give is make sure that your narrative reflects your budget and your budget reflects your narrative. They shouldn't look like they came from two separate organizations. So just keep that in mind and look at them as a unit and not two separate things, because This will give the panelists a much more unified and clearer picture of the organization.
And also with your balance sheet, if you look at the balance sheet tells the other half of the story of your financial statements. If your balance sheet shows a negative fund balances or shows extremely high debt or liabilities or accounts payable, be ready to either explain that or have some kind of plan to be able to make that difference up, because in the past there have been organizations that have the revenues and expenditures look fine, but the balance sheet was horrible. So that reflects, what your organization can do, and with the matching and the whole financial. So with the financials as well, it's in a spreadsheet, so it should add up for you. But just double check it. Sometimes if you accidentally delete the formula and something doesn't make sense, just those little details will cost you points. Mm-hmm. And again, make sense and explain anything that's not usual.
One thing that I would add, know that panelists frequently come from outside of Hillsborough County. So they might be coming from Broward County. If you're answering a narrative question and you are using acronyms that might not be familiar to other people or outside the county, spell it out. If you're referring to explain something like maybe you're for some reason answering a question about an underserved audience and you refer to the name of a school or a neighborhood, if that panelist is not from here, that's not going to mean anything to them. They're not going to know whether or not that neighborhood name was a neighborhood that's very affluent or a neighborhood that is less economically successful. Make sure that you are when you're answering your narrative, that it's going to your question or your answer is going to make sense to someone who is not from here. And if that means getting a test reader for yourself, then that's what you need to do. Because very quickly panelists will become fatigued in reading these grants, and they will just simply not understand, and they've done it as far as going online. They're not going to Google whatever it is you named and do the extra work. Don't make the panelists work. Make it easy for them. Any other questions? Yes.
We haven't applied for a grant from Hillsborough before. Can you give me an idea, a guideline on how much we should be asking for?
Why don't we talk afterwards about that?
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Everybody happy it's online still? No more paper, no more audits, no more financial compilations. Get your 990s together, download the documents on the budget document. Remember to give us your fiscal year. Thank you very much. Remember that you can call us anytime. Eric, Martine, and I will be happy to answer your questions.